For the balance of the hour, my friends, we are joined by a couple of great researchers, and I wanted to get both of their perspectives on what's happening over in the UK right now, because this could bring down the UK Prime Minister with major geopolitical ramifications. This could bring down Rupert-Murdoch and the News Corp empire. Undoubtedly, Media Matters has been caught trying to infiltrate News Corp and, quote, sabotage and, quote, destroy them. So they should get in trouble as well. So definitely there's politics here, but still, something is going on here. The main lead investigator, the main lead whistleblower that caused the police chief to be brought down, of the Metro, the head of Scotland Yard to be brought down, a News Corp exec to be arrested in big hearings in England, was found dead. He told friends and family, they're going to kill me, they're after me. The police, within minutes of finding the body at his house, said, nothing going on, nothing suspicious, move along. And we've got all this news here. So we're joined by James Corbett of the Corbett Report and Tony-Gosling of Bilderberg.org, both great journalists and researchers, to break this down. But here's the headlines coming out today. News International, that's the News Corp division in the UK, deliberately blocked investigations. London Guardian, the Murdoch rot is deeper than hacking scandal and larger than the Murdoch empire. The Excavator News. London Independent, hacking crisis edges closer to UK Prime Minister David Cameron. Also, Buckingham Palace godsmacked by Andy Coulson's appointment as David Cameron's aides. He headed up the News of the World and these operations, now working right inside the government. News Corp stock shot back up yesterday after Murdoch, denied any involvement and said that, said that he knew nothing, like Sergeant Schultz. Rupert Murdoch's sewer press son attacks Tony Farrell, the police terrorism investigator, who said that 9/11 and 7/7 are inside jobs, so they're back at their normal business of covering up the truth. Gentlemen joining us, Tony Gosling and James Corbett. We talked to Tony earlier in the week. He's going to be with us in a moment, but let's first talk to James Corbett, joining us from Japan, who's been filing reports on this. What is your take on these developments?
Well, first, thank you for having me on about this, especially this story, which I think is absolutely so important right now. But I think what this story is essentially it's an onion, and we're just peeling back the layer after layer after layer and getting closer to the heart. And I imagine we're not going to get down to bedrock. We're not going to find the heart of the onion, but we are going to peel off quite a few layers, and some heads are going to roll, whether figuratively or, unfortunately, in some cases, literally, as we've already seen with the death of the whistleblower, as you already pointed out. But I think what we're seeing here, there's definitely politics going on, and there's definitely a reason that this was coming out at this time. I think the fact that Murdoch was going for the B-Sky B network and trying to consolidate the power even more in Europe, just as this came to a head, I think that's more than coincidental. But regardless of why this is happening or how it's coming out right now or how much of the truth we're going to get, I think this is still a golden opportunity for people who are trying to expose the absolute horrific, revolting, disgusting things that these vermin were doing in the name of selling a few newspapers. I mean, hacking into the phones of dead children. I mean, you just could not get any more disgusting than this. And the fact that it's a vast criminal conspiracy, I mean, this is where conspiracy theorizing meets conspiracy fact. I mean,
and the bribing of police, you've got that going on, and it's just the beginning, and now you've got the whistleblower dead, and the police say, move along. That's really suspicious.
It's not only suspicious, it actually goes to the heart of the scandal, because the question is, who do you get to investigate a death like that? It's obviously not the Metropolitan Police, who, as you say, are deeply implicated in this scandal. It's clearly not the Parliament, which is obviously going to be beholden to the Prime Minister, who's deeply implicated in the scandal. It's not the press, because obviously they're deeply implicated in the scandal. It's not
Scotland Yard, because they're deeply involved. I mean, who do you get to do it?
Clearly, this is an absolute institutional breakdown, and I think for the people of Britain, this is an absolute key moment to really grasp what the power structure is and how it operates. But the way I see this, basically, I think this exposes how government is just this vast reservoir of power that's been centralized and put into this place where politicians can then be put in the back pockets of media moguls or whoever has the money to buy them up, and they can put their snoot into the vast reservoir of power and drink from it whenever they need it, whenever they need a regulation changed or a law enforced or wherever they need Scotland Yard to look the other way. And this exposes that dark heart, which is why it's such an important story. And I hope people are really following this closely, because I think basically we're vampire hunters, and there's the New World Order vampire, and we've got a big fat wooden stake in our hand ready to drive it through their heart. And I think this story is something we can use to do that. I
want to come back to James Corbett of CorbettReport.com here in just a moment, but going to former BBC investigator, radio host, and Bilderberg sleuth, Tony-Gosling. Tony, looking at this, clearly the old BBC order is in trouble. Clearly, Murdoch was consolidating power and his political minions, so there's a power struggle going on here. But you add this death to this. I mean, who would stand to gain by the investigator dying? They admit that this could bring down the Prime Minister. What can you tell us about your intel, being there in England, and all your media sources, about the mysterious death of the whistleblower, who we know told his neighbors that they're coming to get me? I'm hiding in my house with the lights off. And then he's found dead, and the police within 20 minutes say, move along, not suspicious, and don't give us any details. What do you know about Mr. Hoare?
Yeah, Sean Hoare. He was a kind of old traditional style Fleet Street journalist, someone who'd been working on tabloid papers for many years, from before the Murdoch era. So he was kind of an interesting character, because he was quite an honest guy, and he obviously didn't like the kind of work that they were putting him to. Thankfully, BBC Panorama interviewed him before he died, so we've got all of his information on record. But of course, that doesn't mean to say he can stand up in court now and testify against Andy Coulson, and it seems quite clear that the guy's been assassinated. It's Bedfordshire Police that will investigate it, and of course they've already come out with some statement from their PR department saying that there's nothing suspicious here. And it's a bit weird, Alex, because the last time I was talking to you earlier in the week, the police were stood over Sean Hoare's body, scratching their heads and wondering what was going on. It was just the story broke just literally after I was speaking to you. But I think what James was talking about there, what is at the heart of this onion, I think what we've got here is becoming clearer and clearer that the links between these three major institutions, that is Downing Street and News International, and also the Scotland Yard, are Masonic links. This is one of the things that's come out in many little bits and pieces of books over the years.
I mean, it's the Masonic Mafia. That's been big national news in England, for those that don't know, that you can't become a judge or a high-level barrister or even get a job now if you're not a Mason, and that's a form of discrimination. And you're saying there's that nexus point between the head of News of the World going to work for Cameron and the police. Please continue.
Yeah, so I think it's becoming pretty clear. It even came out in the Guardian article about 3 weeks ago that one of the characters involved in this affair from News International had been going around. Actually, he managed to recruit a Masonic police officer who went around recruiting various tax officials. We're talking about customs officials, people like this who had access to private information, for the specific purpose of selling that information to News International and giving them the guarantee that there would be no prosecution because he was a senior police officer. This was all happening within Masonic lodges in central London. So that's actually exposed. And it was fascinating to hear Simon Hughes, the chairman of the Liberal Democrat Party, on Newsnight, which is the BBC's main news programme in the evenings here, last week, actually saying we have to make sure that whoever's in charge of this judicial inquiry into phone hacking, because of the horrific nature of, the hacking into phones of dead soldiers and this kind of thing, and this is what's upset the establishment so much in Britain, and we have to make sure that this is not a Freemason. And this was actually said on national television on the main news programme. So it's not just me saying this. This is the highest echelons of the Liberal Democrat Party making it quite clear that they want to make sure that there is no suspicion that the judge in charge of this judicial inquiry into phone hacking is in any way connected through some sort of secret society with some of the main players involved. And this kind of thing has come out really simply through looking at interesting connections between individuals, revolving door syndrome, where they're working at News International, suddenly they pop up working at Downing Street, and then suddenly they disappear and pop up again at Scotland Yard.
How is common purpose involved? I mean, this is sensational to have even the government talking about we can't have Masons investigating this. I mean, sensational is the only word for those that don't know. They love to use the secrecy.
You're being a little bit generous, being a bit generous to the Liberal Democrats, saying that they are government. Even though they are in the coalition, they're very, very much the junior partner. And because Nick Clegg is such a weak character, that's one of the reasons why I say that. You know, he's the Liberal Democrat leader, but he's basically, he's simply the fag, the public school boy fag from public school of David Cameron. He just runs around doing everything that David wants him to do and trying desperately to please David, who could never be pleased enough. But I was listening to all the commentary today from the House of Parliament with Cameron really on the ropes, being interrogated by all these many legally trained MPs, and it was quite clear that he is playing exactly the same game as Rupert-Murdoch was yesterday, and as some of the police have done.
Well, Murdoch played the part of a quisling who couldn't find his pants and was like, gee, Sonny, they let me out of the nursing home to come to this.
That's right. He was exactly right, and he was saying that, we didn't know. Well, one thing I can tell you as an insider who's worked in journalism in London in the 1990s is that everybody knows, except maybe the public, that Rupert Murdoch is intensely interested in how journalists get stories. Every story that appears in one of his newspapers, which is a major sensation of any sort, he will be immediately, it doesn't matter if he's flying across from one part of the world to the other, on the phone to that journalist. How did you get that story? Well done. You know, this kind of thing. And he wants to know everything about the way his organisation is operating. So for him to stand there, or actually sit down at the Cultural Media Sports Select Committee yesterday and say, I didn't know, and none of this is all a big surprise to me.
Well, here's the issue. I want to go back to Corbett for a minute and then back to you, but going to James Corbett, more and more this is looking like it could bring down the Cameron government, but then what do we get from that, and how will this affect News International and News Corp and other divisions around the world, James?
Very important question, because we have to be very careful not to let them get us to throw them in the briar patch and give them the power to regulate free speech in the press even more, because as you know, I mean, Britain is just a terrible place for free speech as it is. It has nothing even close to the First Amendment types of guarantees of freedom of speech. So certainly we wouldn't want to see even greater regulation of the press as a result of this, if that only indicates that basically whatever multimedia mogul billionaire can come along and buy some more politicians and have the whole scandal kick off again in the future. So I think the answer to this has to be a decentralization of power, and this is a greatly destabilizing event, and I think we could conceivably see the Cameron government fall over this at some point down the road. So it is a huge thing that's happening right now, and again, there's a lot of backroom politics taking place. But
yes, we're going to break.
I think one of the key things to understand about this is the establishment fighting with itself in Britain. Actually, the Conservative Party generally represents the establishment. What's happened is, because of the horrendous nature of this Murdoch activity, and also the fact that he's competing in a way with the official security service. He's running his own little intelligence gathering bunker at News International. That this has really split the Conservative Party from the sort of, shall we say, internationalist conservatives to the more nationalistic conservatives. And I think that the majority of the traditional conservative with a small c Tory party absolutely have had enough of that.
Stay there.